Are you ready to live a more free, healthy, and abundant life? Transform your yard into a food forest and create a system for self-reliance that's easy and enjoyable with our friends at Food Forest Abundance. No matter where you're starting from, you can become more self-reliant. And you can take your self-reliance to the next level by becoming a producer of your own food through growing and foraging. And learn how to turn your property into an income-producing source of economic self-reliance. They can help you get off grid and learn what systems to employ for food, water, and energy self-reliance, and live abundantly and in full connection with your property and what you produce. Click the link in the description to get started with your very own food forest and have your own sustainable source of livelihood and become self-sufficient with Food Forest Abundance. Just click the link in the description to get started with your very own food forest today. Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Caroline Cory. First, I have a couple of announcements. If you have a business and you want to advertise with Forbidden Knowledge News, email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. We have absolutely unbeatable pricing and advertising packages. Our website is forbiddenknowledge.news. This is also the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network. You're going to find amazing podcasts featured from our community there. Forbidden Knowledge News is always available on Rokfin, Odysee, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Rokfin is where you get our premium content. But you also get all the premium content from every creator on Rokfin for only $10 a month. You can also create a free account and get tons of free content, including all of our regular shows. You just go to rokfin.com/FKN+, or click the link in the description to sign up. Today I want to welcome back to the show Caroline Cory. She is an award-winning filmmaker and the visionary author of the best-selling books on consciousness, science, and energy medicine. As a child and throughout her life, she has had numerous ESP and otherworldly encounters, which led her to become deeply connected to existential topics, the study of consciousness, and the mechanics of the universe. After teaching energy medicine and consciousness work for over a decade, she founded Omnium Media, an entertainment and media platform that tackles various thought-provoking topics on the human condition and the nature of reality. Caroline, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm great, Chris. How have you been?
I am busy, but excellent, and so are you. It's always great talking with you. I am so excited to talk about your newest film, A Tear in the Sky, and this has some of the best and most authentic footage of extremely anomalous UAP and UFOs that I've ever seen. This may help us understand a small piece of this massive puzzle of ufology, so I can't wait to get into this. Now, all your films cover some of my favorite topics, but what brought you to make this one?
Yeah, so, as you've seen my other films, what I tried to do as a filmmaker is to bring credibility or some sort of validation to topics that are considered paranormal. So it's kind of like I'm making the paranormal normal. And the way to do that is to bring science, to bring whatever science we have to get to that sort of validation. So I've done that with previous topics. And a couple of years ago, I was going to originally do the sequel of my previous film. And I had this inspiration. No, you have to go and do a UFO film. And I was like, okay, but I gotta bring science to the topic. How do you do that? So what was fascinating, as a filmmaker, the first thing you do is you research, is there something like this on this topic? And I was shocked to see that this had never been done before, a scientific investigation, not on previously captured videos or clips or data, but like kind of from scratch. No one's done it this way. And I thought, bingo, that's exactly what I have to be doing. And that's how the idea came about. And we set out to do a expedition to try to capture UFOs in real time under scientific with the scientific approach. Therefore, we wanted to have a huge amount of data collection devices across the spectrums, different locations, and so on and so forth.
Now, talk about some of the locations you've chosen and the reasons you chose those locations.
Yeah, so what happened was, as I was doing this research, I wanted to put the team together from scratch. So get some scientists and experts together. And as I was researching who else is out there doing anything like this, I stumbled on Kevin Day. Kevin Day was the radar operator on the USS Nimitz. For people who, I'm sure a lot of people heard about, the Tic Tac object, that the Navy captured. They made the headlines 2017. And he was the first one who captured it on his radar on the USS Nimitz. And so we started talking, and before I knew it, he said, oh, well, I've been wanting to do the same thing. I have scientists on my team. We've never done it, so this would be amazing if that's what you want to do in the film. So he was already on the ship, interested in bringing that story back, if you will. More importantly, validate his story, And there were two other folks from the same ship. And so because of that, and also there were other ships all in the same area, which is the Catalina area. Interestingly enough, his ship in 2004 and other ships in 2014, 15, 17, the USS Omaha, the USS Kidd, all capturing similar objects. What's that about, right? So, but in terms of location, it kind of made sense. Why should we go anywhere else? We should just go to the same place where it all started.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, talk a little bit about your technical team and the team that was in charge of getting footage with all these different devices.
Yeah, so one person on this team was David Mason. David Mason is an inventor, actually, an engineer, and he had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. So it was a gift to have him on the team. And the type of equipment that we had was not just a regular kit. That's the problem with the UFO world, is that it's just commercial grade cameras, usually one angle, one person, maybe multiple witnesses, but it's always one kind of angle and one type of equipment. So what we've done, we had regular cameras, we had night vision, we had FLIR cameras. For those who don't know, this is about 10 times the range of a regular night vision in the infrared spectrum. That's huge. We had spectrum analyzers, radiation detectors, magnetometers, RF signal. I mean, the whole spectrum of physics covered by all these devices. So that was amazing that we got to use military grade equipment to collect this data. This is the first ever in ufology. That's why this film is so important and educational, because that's the problem that we're missing in ufology, you know? It's like it's not enough data, but we don't know what's on the other side, what's the other angle, how do we know the camera was what you see? So that's how we rule out possibility that it's a one camera malfunction, because it was captured on other cameras. You can't tell me all the cameras were all malfunctioning at the same time, you see? And that's how the data also becomes scientific.
Yeah, and you were going in, not, I'm going to say worried, but very hopeful that you would see something. And it didn't take long for the team to start catching anomalous objects and things that they could rule out as, not regular aircraft or even satellites, right?
Yeah, right. So, we were hopeful. I mean, I was thinking, what are the odds? How many stories have you heard where people go on an expedition and nothing happens? So I was like, oh my God, please show up like something. I need one. This is a movie after all. It was very costly if you saw the production quality. I mean, this was a big crew with we had like 10 cameras running, at one time. And so I was really hoping for just one really incredible, compelling thing. And we ended up with tons of things, in 5 days, that's another proof that there is so much data. We just don't know how to collect it. If in 5 days, we as civilians and scientists, but as civilians, we go out with the right equipment and the right location, I want to say, and we capture hundreds of hours of data, and not only the typical things that people see, on YouTube. We did have those, but we also had the Tic Tac-like objects, which is crazy. We had stuff raining down, and at the end of the movie, as you know, we captured this crazy anomaly. So we ended up, it was way, way, way beyond my expectations.
It makes you wonder, if you guys spent only 5 days out there and the massive amount of footage you got, what our own government and black projects already have. You know that they have much, much more and so much hidden information about this phenomenon. It makes you wonder how much they really know and are hiding from us, and even how much of it is even theirs, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's my point, is that if in 5 days we as civilians go out and, start recording, and we get so much, there's no question that these were anomalous objects. You have stuff literally coming out, appearing in the frame out of nowhere, rotating, you can see the shape, and then disappearing. And then you have things that are registering cold on the camera. Then you have things that are going against the wind. Then you have things, that opening and closing, and things literally raining down. These aren't camera glitches. That's the first thing what we do as scientists, the scientists in the movie, they try to debunk themselves because their neck is on. They're not going to go out and say, oh, we captured this and that. They want to really analyze the heck out of it, to make sure it's not some sort of prosaic, object explanation, And so if in 5 days we got so much, and the government saying, oh, we don't have enough data, or we don't know, blah, blah, blah. Well, they have all the telescopes and they have all the radars pointing at the sky, picking up all sorts of anomalies all the time. There's no way they don't have data. I just don't buy that.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, you got to work with the one and only William Shatner, and you work with him quite often. What's it like to work with Mr. Shatner?
Oh my God, that was a blast. So the only reason why, one of the reasons why we got him, even though this was a scientific expedition, he's not a scientist, everybody knows who he is.
Right.
It was really to try to make, again, this subject more relatable, more mainstream, And so because that's the problem. When in ufology, people think you're crazy, you're weird, you're just this kind of cult or something. But when you make something more relatable, more mainstream, it's easier to talk about these things without ridicule. It becomes a mainstream conversation, which it is starting to happen in the government. And so because of that, I wanted to invite someone who's like kind of would help us bridge the gap, from ufology, from science, also to the science fiction, from science fiction to science, And of course, he came to mind. It was amazing. It just kind of just happened, to be honest. I contacted his office and, I said, this is what we're doing. And yeah, he said, okay. So it was very interesting and very fun working with him.
That's great. Now, you were also looking for evidence of possible communication between these UAPs and us, and forms of communication, whether it be sound or lights or blinking or things of that nature, right?
Yeah, so David Mason had those inventions that are mind-blowing. I mean, mind-blowing. I've never seen anything like this before, and he has more inventions. We only featured a couple in the film. So basically, these devices would project frequencies into space, but also could retrieve the light signature of an object in the sky. So if you would point the binoculars to the object, even a star or any object, you basically can hear what you see. And with this device, you can basically send back that same signal to the object. So, and the idea is that is the normal way of communication, is to send back the signal that you are receiving. So we had these devices running 24/7, and we tried them. It was very, very fascinating to put that to the test because we had never done it at that scale. And and so right the next day is what was it? The next I think it was that evening. I want to say no. I think it was, we did it at 3 a.m. at night. I remember very well this one we were filming because we were so tired. It was at the end of the day, it was at night. And it was literally the next morning that we had, a few hours later, that we captured these raining Tic Tacs, also that I've never seen before. Literally a bunch of things falling down, raining down from the sky, hitting the water. And so, did we trigger it? We don't have proof. We certainly have an interesting time correlation. And so that's kind of what we're working on. We're studying more and more the data. And of course, we're going to do more of these expeditions to find out how the system works.
That's great. This is exactly what we need more of, people going, deep into this kind of scientific research about what could possibly be going on. And speaking of that, something very interesting that you discovered was some of these UAPs have low temperatures or no temperature showing up on the FLIR camera, meaning that they don't have any propulsion, right? Lately, we have been introducing you to all the amazing products Ascent Nutrition has to offer. This week, I'm very excited to tell you about their full-spectrum hemp oil. Ascent Nutrition's full-spectrum hemp oil utilizes superior plant genetics and an organic proprietary blend of natural ingredients. Their hemp oil contains not only an abundance of CBD, but 119 other phytocannabinoids found within the spectrum of the hemp plant. According to the National Center of Biotechnology Information, this strain is the gold standard in hemp genome sequencing. Ascent also uses a unique method that ensures infusion of significantly more phytocannabinoids and CBD than all other competitors they tested against, including most of the leading CBD companies. I challenge everyone in the audience that uses CBD, as well as those of you who may have tried other CBD options and didn't get any results, to try Ascent Nutrition's full-spectrum hemp oil, which is guaranteed to be much stronger and contains more phytonutrients than any others on the market. Just click the link in the description or visit goascentnutrition.com and use coupon code FKN to get 10% off your entire purchase.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is when you have a craft in the sky, it has some sort of propulsion system. The friction with the air, what have you, is causing it to register hot. Even birds register hot, and so when we have those, the FLIR cameras are thermal cameras that are very precise and very sensitive. So they're picking up the temperature of these objects and they're registering very cold. So how is that possible? How is it possible to have a propulsion system to fly through space and have no temperature whatsoever? So these are the types of data points that tell us, okay, this is an anomaly of some sort. And so we investigate it further and see if there are other correlations as well. So, but this is one of the big, kind of data points that we captured on film as well.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. You also captured plenty of what looked like to be these Tic Tac UFOs, which are apparently more common than we think, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. I was going in thinking, let's just capture one really cool thing. But when we were studying the data, we saw some of them were literally the same shape, traveling exactly in the same way. People even can see that in the trailer. That was mind-blowing. So, I mean, are these the exact same ones? Okay, so they saw them in 2004, 2014, 15. You can only assume it's in the same area, doing the same behavior. Also, the ones falling down at 20,000 miles an hour, 50,000 miles an hour. How does that work?
Yeah, he said he saw them raining. It was like it was raining Tic Tacs one time. That's incredible.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we captured on camera in 2021. So, I mean, so is it a coincidence? I don't know. I doubt it because it kind of keeps repeating the same pattern in the same area. Regardless, it's pretty extraordinary that we were even able to capture these things on our devices, I mean, that's why, and this is rare. I mean, I've never seen that type of footage, anywhere actually. So I'm very excited for people to see that in the film.
Yeah, this is incredible footage. It was some of the most compelling UAP footage I've ever seen. But let's explore the possibility that these could be just some of our Black Project technology that our own government has been hiding from us for a while. We know that they are always ahead, maybe 50, maybe 100, maybe more years ahead of what they're ever going to show us in technology. So how do we know that these things aren't earthly, aren't created by humans?
We don't. I think some of them are created by humans. That's my take on it. Mm-hmm. Can I prove it at this point? No. But it just seems like it's very possible that we do have this technology and some of the things we've captured are human-made. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, there are certain things that I am personally convinced that are not human-made. Again, can I prove it? We're doing that. I mean, we're doing that. But all the data points show or validate the fact that it's impossible for it to be human-made because of the way it morphs from light, a light form to a material form, and it changes and it's something that just doesn't seem like it's human-made. So I think it's both, and that's the problem with ufology. We think it's only one thing, but actually it's multiple things happening at the same time. Some of it could also be atmospheric for all we know.
Right.
So
well, the really compelling ones are when you have like CE5 experiences and these things will respond to thoughts or if you're kind of asking these objects to perform something through your consciousness, they'll respond to it. And those to me are some of the most compelling evidence that this may not be something that we're dealing with a drone or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I've had those experiences as well, and I know there's an intelligence behind them. There's like no question in my mind. And so, not just the C, I mean, I do my own version of the CE5. I mean, I've seen things right above my head, and I kind of communicate like if you're there, if you're out there, whatever. Can you show me or tell me? And then the things like split up, in different kind of, first it were three, then it was four, then it was eight. And also I would say, okay, well, show me something else. And then I kind of start walking in one direction, like half a mile, and the thing is hovering right above me. I change direction, it's like hovering right above me. I mean, and so is that really coincidence? I mean, it's either that or I have some superpowers where I make things just show up and do what I want them to do. And there was a witness, there was a neighbor right there on that day. And I said, hey, do you see these things that just split up in four? And she was like, she was walking her dog, I'll never forget. And she goes, oh, yeah, that's interesting. And then she goes about her, walking the dog like nothing happened. I'd be like, what? Wait a minute. So anyway, this is also just to tell you how people's, kind of reaction to things, like, and how she probably just totally dismissed it. She saw it, she acknowledged it, and then she totally dismissed it. So that's fascinating to me as well.
Yeah, it is. Now, your film, it's also could provide possible evidence that these craft are using wormhole technology that's been theorized by many researchers over the years, that these crafts have some type of technology that can open up a portal or a wormhole that can bring them from one either dimension or part of the galaxy to the other in an instant. And you may have even caught evidence of this on film, right?
Yeah, so at the end, that was totally crazy. So we capture this anomaly that literally it's an opening and closing, some sort of cloud, but it's not a cloud because it's too fast for a cloud to open and close. And then there are actual reflective objects coming out of it. So again, these are hardcore scientists, they're going to make sure it's not a camera glitch, it's not this, it's not that. And so nothing's checking out, and people will just see it in the movie, how they go about figuring out what this thing is. And the radar picks up reflective objects. It's not radiation, because it's literally this opening and closing and a bunch of little dots that actually they were able to measure, which interestingly enough, the measurement is the size of the Tic Tacs. Are they the same? Again, we can't prove it, but we're just showing the crazy correlation or similarities with these objects that were seen in 2004. So yeah, is it a wormhole? So far, it's the closest kind of title we can give this to for now. But of course, these are scientists. They're not going to say, hey, we discovered a wormhole. It's going to take a lot more hours and days and months of investigation and, before they can claim anything. They don't even know what a wormhole is. I mean, in terms of like having captured it. So they don't have anything to say, well, that was a wormhole and here's another one, So this is where we're at with that, but it's fascinating. But one thing we can say 100% for sure, it is an anomalous event.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's incredible. If you go, if you go watch the film and you see that footage, it is incredible to watch. I actually rewound it again just to see it a couple of times. I highly encourage everyone to go check that out. Now, at the same time you were catching this anomaly, didn't you have some camera malfunctions on other cameras?
Yeah, so sometimes, because we had multiple sightings, sometimes when one thing would happen, the other stuff would break down, sometimes. And so it was, also the correlation was interesting because we hear a lot about things breaking down, the power going out exactly at the time that you have. We also had very significant gamma ray bursts and energy bursts exactly at those times which also is an interesting correlation. How does that work? Why is that? And so we had so many interesting correlations of different things happening all at once that give us clues to how this phenomenon operates, or the mechanism. The more we do that, of course, as scientists, we want to repeat that and do it over and over, and then over time come to definitive conclusions. But this has never been done before at this scale, in this way. So it's a huge step forward in the world of ufology, I think.
It is. It's definitely fascinating. Now, my thoughts on ufology, extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings has definitely changed over the years, especially after I've had my own experiences and, spoken with many different brilliant people and researchers and had a better understanding of what's going on. It's changed over the years, and I no longer just strictly believe that these are maybe beings coming from different planets, but more likely different dimensions or different realms or different realities, that they have the technology to kind of breach through ours. And I want to get your thoughts on this, whether you think they are coming interdimensionally or, intergalactically traveling on, ships or UFOs or UAPs through the universe to get here, space travel, or is it something else that we don't quite understand yet?
I think it's all the above, Chris, and that's the point. Some things are literally in our skies right now. They're just in a different, visual spectrum that we don't see them. And we know this is a fact because sometimes even just with the night vision, with the infrared, you can see something, but then you take off the goggles and you can't see anything. So it's very possible, keep going in that direction, that there are literally huge ships right there, but we can't see them. It's past the infrared spectrum that we have. So there's that. And there are others that I think are coming in and out. And so it's a little bit of everything, I think. So the idea is to figure out the mechanism that allows these things to happen, space travel to happen, the science behind space travel. And then a lot of this can be explained. And so, yeah, I think it's not just one thing.
What do you think about the experiencers and contactees that claim to have been taken aboard craft, and the craft seem to be organic or living, and have their own consciousness? That would add a whole different level to space travel with, having a conscious, organic, living craft, right?
Yeah, totally. I'm 100% convinced that the more advanced you are, the more you are moving away from the material type technology, or at least it's a combination between consciousness and technology, hard technology, material technology, because of these experiences that we've had where you communicate with this craft and then it does something. So you know what I mean? So there's something very fascinating about the entanglement of consciousness with an actual craft. So I think the more advanced civilizations are definitely using that sort of technology, not nuts and bolts technology. And so I think we're not there yet. And these are the ones that I believe are the extraterrestrial ones. And I also, in my work on consciousness, I have come across hundreds of people from all over, and I did a lot of regression therapy with them, where they would go kind of like a hypnosis type thing, where they would go and remember these experiences. And the common denominator is fascinating. They all report very similar things, where they are on a craft and it's all operated with consciousness. It's kind of like this morphed kind of version of what we think a craft should look like. And it's fascinating.
Yeah, it definitely is. That brings a whole new level. It's like an onion that you keep trying to unpeel, and there's never, ever an end to it. Now, we talked a little bit about the possibility of these being ours, and Yes, I agree that a lot of them are ours, but there probably are a lot that aren't. Right now, we're experiencing a lot of what people are calling disclosure in the media, and I don't call it that. Our own government, the Pentagon, and military are talking about UAPs. They're bringing out information, but they're not really showing us anything new. They're painting it as a threat, and from every experience, from every contactee, from every abductee I've had on, most of them, I'd say probably 80 to 90%, including myself, have had positive experiences. And if they started out as negative experiences, they've been regressed or they've had better understanding of the experience, and it becomes a more positive experience later on based on their understanding. Every once in a while, you'll get the more nefarious negative experiences, but most of those appear to be military related because they'll have some kind of military person there during the experience. So that makes me think that's another kind of human type experience. And the mainstream is really portraying this UFO as the UAP thing as a threat. So I want to get your thoughts on what's coming out of our government and media with UFOs right now.
Yeah, you know what? The whole disclosure thing is interesting. I think we are we are putting a material out that's getting every day more and more validated. This film, for example, I don't see any other film that captures on tape in real time that many correlations and that many evidence of these anomalies. So that is disclosure. Is anybody paying attention? I don't know. Of course, a lot of people are, but what I'm saying is we are still waiting for the government to tell us what it is. And so they're starting to, they are now, especially with the congressional hearing, that was crazy, that they're finally talking about it at that level, even though they're kind of claiming to not know very much. Which is kind of embarrassing because, again, we are civilians and we were able to go out and do this in 5 days. It doesn't make sense that at a government level, they are still saying, some of them didn't even know of some of the most famous cases of the nuclear facilities. I don't know if you watched the congressional hearing, but anyway, all this to say, there's definitely an effort from the government's perspective to finally be talking about all of this. And to me, when it just comes out of nowhere, from the 2017, this gradual kind of disclosure or, releasing of reports, I don't know, there's got to be some sort of agenda, because why all of a sudden?
Yeah, and the government media don't have the best track record for being honest about things and having our best interest in mind, so it makes me pretty wary.
Yeah, exactly. And the UAP report says we don't have this, we don't know this or that, but just give us more money and we'll tell you more. Yeah, that doesn't sit well with me. But also, but the fact that there's another thing. People think that when the government speaks, it's one body, like one person that's going to tell us everything. But I think that's not how it really works. I think within the government, there are different divisions and different kind of factions or whatever, different groups and people who really, really know, and other people who have no clue, really, because they weren't briefed or they don't believe or what have you, and they don't have the data. So when these guys say, we don't know, it's because they really don't know, and when the others start to release something, it gets confusing. So for us on the outside, when we are getting these kind of messages, that it's about this, it's about that, it's very confusing. And that's why I feel that there is some sort of agenda going on behind all of this. And maybe one of the agenda is to keep us all confused. Of course, you and I are getting it, but I'm talking about the general public.
Right. Do you think that there is at all any type of threat or anything we should have to fear from these objects or anything associated with them?
not extraterrestrials, because
Right.
if they were that advanced and they wanted to take over planet Earth, I mean, what are they waiting for? I mean, look at
Exactly.
us, we're pretty pathetic. You know, we're still going to wars, we're still to war, we're still invading countries. You know, we still have famine, we still have poverty. We're a mess. We don't get along. And so it's very easy for an enemy to just come and take over this planet, you know, if they have the technology. If they have the technology to get here, then they have the technology to take us out. You know what I mean? So that's the reason why I don't think there is a threat at all from an extraterrestrial perspective.
Right. Well, let's get to the other part of this. As well as myself, everyone that has had profound contact, that has an understanding of it, that it's not nefarious and they haven't been through a nefarious situation, has bettered their lives, has had, and it was a spiritual experience for him. They have they're seeking more knowledge now. It's a consciousness evolution, and all the people that I know that have had profound ET contact or spiritual contact or whatever one you want to call it are seeking better for their lives and doing better, and they want to know, the truth about their experiences. And it makes me believe that this whole phenomenon is indeed a spiritual phenomenon and not anything that we should be worried about. And it's for our consciousness evolution, and it seems to be connected directly to each and every person on an individual level. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's my experience, Chris. You know, I've had a few not so good experiences with this whole subject, but in general, it's totally improved my life. It's totally expanded my consciousness and understanding of how the universe works, how we fit within the cosmos. I mean, all sorts of things, all very, very, very positive for me and many, many people around the world. So, you know, it doesn't mean that those who did have negative experiences aren't real. I mean, are not telling the truth. I'm just saying there's the other side of the coin. Like, I really feel in general, it's a benevolent energy. And just like on Earth, there's a lot of good people and not so nice people. But in general, I think the intent is a positive one.
Do you see a kind of mass evolution and consciousness awakening that has been going on, and it seems to be getting stronger across the planet right now? More people either having experiences or seeking. So it seems like a special time right now where people are either coming online or having these kind of profound experiences. Is this something you see as well?
Yes, I think so. I think we're evolving as a species anyway. You know, I feel like there's a general trend going in that direction. And so I think I'm a believer that there's something bigger than us, you know? And I'm not talking about the extraterrestrial. I'm talking about there's a bigger source of life, a bigger energy that is in which we're all contained, if you will. And so I feel that that is the energy that's kind of moving the evolutionary pattern of humanity. And so that's my personal opinion. And so because of that, I feel like we're going to continue to grow and evolve in that direction, the direction of expansion, freedom, direct access to cosmic information, cosmic energy, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that we've actually been seeing this for a while. Have you heard of more people having contact experiences or even, UFO sightings or things of that nature?
Definitely, definitely. I think it's now becoming more, again, mainstream or more common. People aren't as afraid to be ridiculed because, the Navy and the Pentagon, the government's talking about it. So it's almost like they're giving us permission to be, talking about it. And so more and more people are putting stuff out there. But the subject's been going on for hundreds of years. So this is an interesting time. It is an interesting time where we can finally talk about this without people kind of rolling their eyes or what have you. And I'm hoping with my film, for example, to keep this conversation going mainstream so that we understand what this is about. The one aspect is the Black projects and the whole government, this and that. But this phenomenon is not just that, It is about the mechanics of the universe, how everything fits together, works together, is connected together. What type of technology do we need for intergalactic, interstellar travel? I mean, that is what's so fascinating to me. And that's why we have to keep the dialogue.
Now, have you noticed that more people are interested in PSI phenomenon and consciousness studies? I know that you do a lot having to do with consciousness studies.
I don't know about more abilities. I think they're recognizing more of these abilities, but at least they're more open to the idea. And that's what I'm saying. It's not just about UFOs. It's about the bigger picture. How does it all work? Who are we? Is this really the end of all? We come to this planet and then we mate, we have families, and then we die, and then we expire, and that's it. There's got to be a bigger story. And that's what I'm saying. So people are starting to accept more and more the idea that maybe I do have something called intuition. I don't know how it's measured or what have you, but maybe there is something that gives me the ability to precog, the future or remote viewing or what have you. I mean, at least I think they're a lot more open to so many possibilities at this time.
Now, how important do you think things like meditation or like we were talking about CE5 can be to establishing contact or even contact with a UAP?
It's very important. I mean, it starts with quieting the mind. Because if your mind is all over the place, you have to think of your brain like a computer giving a signal. If you are out there saying, "Oh, I want to communicate with a spacecraft or with an extraterrestrial," but then the other part of your subconscious mind is saying, "Oh, that's never going to happen," and then your other, part of your brain is saying, "Well, how do I do that? And are they out there?" And if you're like kind of the mind chatter is all over the place. You're sending all these conflicting signals. And so how are you supposed, even if somebody or an extraterrestrial or anything was trying to communicate back with you, you wouldn't even hear it because you're talking, And so that's what meditation does. It kind of quiets the mind, puts you in a state, this receptive state of consciousness that allows this sort of mind consciousness exchange. So it's very, very, very important.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too off topic, but that's something I've been looking at lately is a connection to human health and our spiritual and conscious abilities. I know that over the years, there's been a bombardment of, basically poison that we've been eating through our food and water and air that probably inhibits our ability to access some of these abilities. Do you think that this has a bearing on what we're able to do with our consciousness abilities as far as, the food intake and our health?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not really off topic because, again, we are part of a universe. We are like we have antennas. We are receiving information and energy, whether we see it or not. And we are sending out these signals as well, whether we see them or not. And so it's all part of the experience. And so if we are receiving information or sending out information that's harmful, it's going to register in our body in some way. It's going to affect the chemistry, the electricity, our nervous system is going to react in a different way. It's going to mess us up. So it's all connected and it's a revolving door. The more our physical system is messed up, the more we send out the wrong information, and we receive the wrong signals as well. So it's all part of the same thing. And that's the reason why understanding how you function, how to get your centered, being centered through meditation and other type work is the key to understanding what's on the outside as well.
Taking it back to the film a little bit, earlier you were talking about how some people might see something in the sky or a UAP and they're standing next to somebody else and trying to get their attention and they never see it and they never pay attention, or if they do, they're just like, yeah, whatever. And you actually in this film, it's the same with some cameras, right? Some of the cameras picked stuff up and some others didn't.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify something, because this was Jeremy. He says there was two cameras, but the two cameras, one was a fisheye and one was a regular camera. Mm-hmm. But what I want to clarify is that, because people who understand optics would say it's possible and it's normal for one camera with a certain focal length to see something and not the other. But what I wanted to clarify is that it was a cloud and an object. So he was still seeing the same cloud, but it's the object that couldn't be seen. If it was a camera issue, then he shouldn't be seeing anything. Does that make sense? Or the exact same thing, but not like half of the thing. So I think that's what he mentioned. And so that was kind of strange. How is that possible? But also it's in the same way where you see something in the sky, you can't see it with the naked eye, but then you put in the night vision or the infrared and then you see certain things. I mean, that tells us a lot about not just camera system, but our vision, There's so much that's happening that we have no idea it's there because we can't see it.
Yeah. And what do you think about the instances where people are seeing a UFO or object in the sky and someone's right next to them looking in that same area and they don't see anything? Do you think that there is some kind of, consciousness effect for people, or people who aren't in tune with certain frequencies won't be able to tune into it?
It's a little bit of both. It's a belief system that is so strong that there's nothing out there. Keep saying that and you won't see anything out there. It's kind of like those ships, in the 14th century or whatever, you would look out. They didn't know what a ship would look like, so they would look out to the sea and never see a ship because they didn't have a concept of what a ship, that an object could be floating above water, if that makes sense. And so it's a little bit like that. If you have a belief system that it's impossible for you to see an anomalous object flying up in the sky, then even though you're looking in the sky, you probably won't see it. There's that. And there's the fact that you're not tuned into that frequency as well. And some people are more sensitive. They can see beyond the spectrum. So it depends. It's case by case, but it's definitely a little bit of both.
Now, what do you think is happening in certain places that are hotspots around the globe? But let's just take, for example, Skinwalker Ranch. There's places like Mount Shasta, the Meadow, all these new type of places out west that are reporting tons and tons of not only UFO footage, but cryptid sightings, paranormal activity, and all this strange anomalous stuff that's kind of concentrated into one specific area for some reason. Like they'll have a UFO and then a Bigfoot sighting at the same time. I want to get your thoughts on these kind of places of concentrated high strangeness energy.
Yeah, I think these hot spots have to do with the magnetic field around the planet. I feel there are certain parts within the magnetic field where the magnetic field is concentrated. It's kind of, there's intersecting points. And this is where the fabric of space-time gets warped, if you will, like it's bent. And so when you have an object going through it, then you're kind of bypassing, you're outside the fabric of space-time, so you're outside space-time, so you're defying gravity in a way, and you can just do all sorts of maneuvers, with that, with the proper technology, obviously. So I believe that these are magnetic anomalies within the space, not just around the planet above us, but also below us. And so these are what I call, this is how I would explain some of these anomalies. Of course, it's a long ways before we can prove these things and verify them scientifically with formulas and stuff. But I feel that that's what's really happening. Also, when you're warping space, you're potentially bending light. And so when you bend light in a certain way and you're looking at that location, in that direction, 1 minute you see something, but then the light is bent, so then the next minute you won't see it again. So I feel there's something that has to do with something like that, where you're warping the fabric of space-time through the magnetic field, and that's what's happening in these hotspots.
Now, do you think that there is some sort of connection between paranormal activity, spirits, ghosts, the afterlife, and extraterrestrials? With some of these hotspots, some of these things kind of coincide and kind of mesh together. Not only that, a lot of the phenomena in general has these crossovers, and I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I don't know I don't really know how to kind of express this, but I think you're making the connection between the spirit world and extraterrestrials. And I think it goes back to the dimensional space. All of these entities, whether they're deceased relatives like a ghost or something, or an extraterrestrial, exist. They're here right now, but they're in this spectrum right, above or below our visual spectrum that we don't really see them. So to me, it's more, that's the common denominator. It's a dimensional issue. It's a dimensional question. And that's why when we tap into deceased relatives, like, for example, if you can start to see angels, you probably can see extraterrestrials. You know what I mean? Because it's about the spectrum. You're tapping into this additional spectrum of information, that additional dimension, where you start to see what else is out there. And that's what I think is common to all these things.
Now, I know it's hard to tell with the amount of data out there, but do you think that there has been more sightings in the past few years? Do you think that sightings of UAPs are increasing overall?
I don't know if they are increasing, to be honest. I think it's more that more people are reporting them because it's okay now to report them, or they're recognizing some of the areas that have the most sightings and going there. So I don't know really. Like, I can't say that it's definitely more. I think it's more that we are reporting them and recognizing where they are. That's my take on it.
I think you're right. And it's easier now for people to share information and share pictures with the internet and things of that nature. But it's also easier for people to fake things and put false information out there. And that's another thing that I want to talk about you before we close out, is the kind of infiltration three-letter agency individuals into the UFO community. I think that's done intentionally to muddy the waters, and I want to get your thoughts on that, and if you see the same thing of kind of this infiltration of former three-letter agency individuals coming in and muddying our community up.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all part of the whatever agenda there is. They've always been there. And depending on what the agenda is, they're gonna try to do whatever is necessary. So again, this is nothing new. That's what's so fascinating, Chris, is that what we're talking about it has been happening for the longest time. The only difference is that now it's coming out. It's being revealed more and more, and that's what's so very, very fascinating at this juncture, to see how these other entities are going to start reacting. What the next chapter is for them. But I think, for people who are interested in the subject or in any similar subject, it's really about us. That's what I did with the film. I was like, okay, the government is not telling us this, not telling us this. There is no scientific anything that's been done. So maybe it's up to us to go out and do it from scratch. And that's what we did. So in the same way, I'm hoping that this film will continue encouraging people to, regardless of what the government's doing, whoever's, three-letter agencies are doing, it doesn't really matter. This is the best time ever to be out there, to be putting out credible information to push this disclosure further. And that's what I'm hoping this film is going to do as well.
Right on. Well, the film is excellent. I highly recommend everyone go and see it. Is there any other projects that you're currently working on that we can look forward to?
Well, I mean, my gosh, you saw what we found in this film. So now I have like a ton of ideas, oh, we should go out and do this and do this. So I have a few projects lined up, based on what we found for sure. It's a bit premature to be talking or saying anything definitive, but it's definitely the projects are starting to pile up because of what we found and the implications of what we found and the data that we still are going through. So I'll let you know.
That's great. Well, this was fantastic. We're going to definitely have you back on when the next one comes out. Let the audience know where they can find you and all of your work.
Yeah, so they can watch the film on Amazon, on iTunes, but the best thing is probably to go to the website, atearinthesky.com, because they'll see all the platforms there. And also, if we have any additional data, any additional information, they can always go back to the website. So atearinthesky.com.
I love it. Well, that was great. Thank you so much, Caroline. We will definitely be talking again in the future.
Thanks so much, Chris. This was awesome.
Yes, it was. Until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. See you then.